Get Warrior Tough. Mental Training 101 with Andrew Wittman and Dutch Coleman. And now back to Andrew and Dutch.
See, I like this music too, Dutch.
Yep.
Get me all cranked up, which I don't really need. I'll tell you what, I feel like I've been on like a 6-week, rant, man. There's just so much nonsense out there.
Every day, there's something new happening every day.
It really is, man. It's just, and there is good stuff out there, and there are good, but they're just so few and far between compared to the average-minded companies that are out there, man.
I saw an article yesterday, and you got to check on this, and I'll let the people themselves check on it. But the legislatures in Florida, I think it was in Miami, the conversation and the name calling that they had that occurred. Did you see that?
No. I usually when that stuff happens, it's like in Chechnya or Georgia or Ukraine or something. Where the parliament, there's like a fist fight. It's usually like one of those Eastern European countries.
It is the worst behavior, and the thing is, this is our leadership, and this is what young people read the newspapers, they read the news, they keep up with this stuff, and when they behave that way, it is so discouraging for, I can imagine, a young mind that's trying to figure out what's going on, how to do things, how to operate. And they're getting more of that stuff and less of us, right?
Yeah.
And they're being influenced as if that's the way you're supposed to behave. That's going to get you to the top, because where are those people? They're at the top.
Well, and it would call it, appealing to the lowest part of the brainstem. We're trying to get down to the basal emotions. That's what gets TV ratings. That's why, that's what gets, songs are number one hits. The more coarse they are, the more basal they are.
Yes.
Movies, all that stuff. So we are fighting an uphill battle. But listen, that's what the average-minded does. So if you want to be average, then go with that. If you want to have an elite warrior life, a resilient life, one that you're in the top 1% of performers worldwide, then you come on and you swim upstream like us. It reminds me of when we were in Seattle and you were down there. Pikes, was it Pikes? What was the market with the salmon? You were chucking salmon?
I think it's something Pike.
Yeah, I can't remember. But yeah, I remember the salmon, you holding salmon. That was funny. All right, so this is here's another one that companies, managers specifically, do not allow their people to pursue their passion. First off, they don't even help them identify their passion, and then they don't find a way to plug them in and use their passion. And we do a whole thing on a passion and intensity. Listen, to really be great and have championship level results, you have to have sustained intensity long enough doing that thing. And the only way that happens, the only thing that fuels that intensity to get those great results is being passionate about something.
This is another one where people are at home listening, shaking their heads, because when's the last time your boss or your organization asked you what you wanted out of this? What were your personal goals? Whether it's the development, your personal development, your professional development, what type of visions you had personally for your job, for your future, for the company. Like, what did you see your contribution for the company being? What would be ideal for you? You don't get asked these sort of questions. You never do. But the best companies, they are asking these questions,
right? And
they're fulfilling these desires for their top employees, and that's where all their employees.
Yeah, that's where the good talent's going to go, to the companies that do that take the time. And I got to tell you, it's just intellectually lazy to not find out what your people are passionate about.
I had what I thought was an incredible opportunity one time when I was younger and worked for what I thought was an incredible organization, and they all wanted me. I had about I think it was about 6 people on a conference call, all wanting me to take this job. And I was just, the interview process was just going through the motion, so to speak. You know how some organizations, they already identified you, they know they want you, then you got to go through this.
You got to do the process, yeah.
Got to do the process. So I'm going through the process, and there was a point in the process on that final call, this was the final call that revealed itself, where I mentioned my passion with this position, and it was revealed to me that was irrelevant. And at that moment, I thanked them for the opportunity, and I got off the call. I removed myself from the position. And the moment I hung up the phone, I started getting calls from all the people on that call. What are you doing? What are you doing? You have this job. This is your job. And I said, I don't want this job. And it was directly related to this right here. You don't allow them to pursue the employees to pursue their passion. And when you have a great employee that has options,
yeah, you're not going to right.
You ain't going to take that one.
No,
and that's exactly what happened with me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that, man. And I wish more people had the courage to do that. But a lot of people act out of fear and, well, if I don't have this job, I can't get another one. That's just, and maybe you're not a high enough level performer to get another job. I don't know. It always reminds me of that coach from the Dallas Cowboys. I feel like that guy could never get another job coaching another team because he just does whatever Jerry says.
Right. He has no credibility.
No, I don't think he would get. It's like, so he's stuck there. He's not passionate. He's like he just does whatever Jerry says because he can't go anywhere else. No one else is going to hire him.
No way.
No one sees him as a real coach.
No one. No, and that's sad because he had an opportunity very early on. If he would have shucked that nonsense and said, "No, I'm not taking it," people would have been lining up to hire him.
Right. It's almost counterintuitive, right? So, but now. Because he made that deal, he traded out his passion for the job. He can't go anywhere. Like he's in a dead end now. Now he can't pursue his passion.
He's Jerry's guy. He will always be Jerry's guy. And the moment Jerry wants to throw him out, he's done.
Right. Yeah. I mean, because Bill Parcells coached there for like a year, and that didn't work. Jimmy Johnson lasted 2 years. That didn't work. Barry Switzer was there for a couple minutes. That didn't work. Right. So a real coach doesn't last there. But those guys all land on their feet. Right? Yep. And this is the same thing with the employees. This is employee mindset. I know I'm using a sports analogy, but see, you trade your passion for the paycheck. You're setting yourself up for a life of disengagement. And it's a life of regret. And listen, I'm old enough now, Dutch, that I've had to make some regret payments because I took paychecks just because I was trying to survive. And I'm not saying you don't do that. But I'll tell you what, as soon as you get your feet under you, you need to pull the trigger on, I got to go find someplace to follow my passion. And again, that's why I have that varied background that I have. I didn't just stay 20 years or 30 years in the Marine Corps. I didn't stay 20 or 30 years in law enforcement. I didn't stay 20 or 30 years as a federal agent. Right? I didn't stay 20 or 30 years as an instructor with the State Department. I don't do 20 or 30 years, man.
Yeah, and that's admirable. You're not Garrett. That's his name. You're not Garrett, and no one will see you that way, right?
Well, because I'm going to be challenged. Here's the thing: I need a challenge, and if you don't challenge somebody, the ones that need that, all of us, the human machine needs to be challenged. Some of us get so desensitized to that we don't have a challenge, that we're on this autopilot, like on the hamster on the wheel. Right, that you've just been doing the same thing over and over again for 20 years. You could do it with your eyes closed. You're in a rut, man. Right, you're in a rut, and they've taken you for granted because you've been there 20 years. They don't think you're leaving.
Yep.
The greatest thing. Go ahead.
Yeah, you hadn't given them any indication to think that. No. You completely undersold yourself. You've devalued yourself with your actions, and they're right to think that because that's all you've ever shown. And if you did leave, you aren't ready, and you wasted all those years, and you probably moved backwards. I guarantee you, Garrett moved backwards in his career.
If you're not growing, you're dying.
He's less of a coach today than he was when he first took that job, because I guarantee you, like you just said, he hasn't grown because he's only done what Jerry Jones has told him to do, and we know Jerry Jones isn't a coach.
Well, don't tell Jerry that.
Yeah, so you've gotten worse. You've gotten worse because you've listened and learned from a non-coach over the past 10 years.
Yeah, your decisions are what would Jerry do? He's got a WWJ J bracelet. What would Jerry Jones do? Right. So but you know what? The greatest thing, I love this because there's all this talk about, oh man, the real problem is robots, automation, and people are going to lose their jobs. If you're doing a robot's job like this, the same thing over and over again for 20 years, the greatest thing that could happen to the human race is that you don't do that job anymore, and it forces you to go do some learning and developing. Develop new skills. Train. People are like, I'm too old to learn. No, you're not. There's this thing called neuroplasticity that your brain, it changes when you decide I'm going to make changes. When you learn new skills, no matter what age you are, it's neuroplasticity. Right? Yes, it may not be comfortable. That's why you're doing what you're doing, is because it's just comfortable. Bring the robots on. That's what I say, Dutch. Bring them on.
You're using facts to take away what my grandma told me.
Uh-oh.
When they say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, I think my grandma told me that.
I know, but you can if they want to learn. If they want to learn, they can.
Facts.
This just neuroscience. I mean, we know now that, people like, well, you used to think that you had whatever you had in your brain by the time, you were done childhood. It just ain't so. It just ain't so.
You remember another big one, you're born, leaders are born. That's garbage.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, that's not to say that some people aren't born leaders, but leaders aren't only born. And that's the way that it used to be said, that you were a born leader. Yep.
They're a born leader. Born leader.
That's not it. Mm-hmm.
And if you fail to develop skills and you're failing to learn, you're setting yourself up for disengagement. And listen, the managers and the bosses, Dutch, I'll say it like this. We were in D.C. last week, and we had a great group in there. Everybody in that group asked to be in our class. Mm-hmm. Now, we've had other groups where they were told to be in the class, and they were there just to get their, quote, 8 hours, check the box so they could have this required training for the year. Huge difference between the two. So this one is not on the manager. The managers, yes, the leaders of the company do need to provide for training and developing skills. But employees, listen up, man. When it's offered to you, you need to go in there with a good attitude and a learning attitude and take them up on it and stop pushing back on any new skills just because you're comfortable.
The good thing is, I know we got about 30 seconds left, but when on one of the breaks, one of the students came back and said, when they were on the break, that they told someone where they were. So, hey, where were you? Where you been all morning? And they told them they were in our class. And they said, oh, man, Dutch and Andrew, that class, oh, man, I heard nothing but great things about that class. Man, that is a great class. And I have to say, man, that made me feel really good to hear that, because a lot of times what we do goes unappreciated, because like you said, you have these people who are just trying to do it to satisfy a quota. When you have employees that take it upon themselves to be developed, to add skills to their toolbox, to their repertoire.
Yeah.
I really, really appreciate that.
So do I, man. That was when it's fun. Now, and the opposites, it's funny because we've had both types in that same organization that we were at. We've had the ones that have been forced there, and we've had the ones that want to be there. I always love teaching the ones that want to be there. You're listening to the Get Warrior Tough radio show with Dutch and Andrew. We'll be right back.